Welcome, everybody, to the Econ Survival Guide. This is Mr. Desjardins, and I'm here to help teach you econ. Today, our topic is going to be Lesson 6. We're going to be talking today about economic growth. Now, economic growth has a few different factors to it, and today we're going to be learning our first economic graph, the production possibilities curve. The first topic that we're going to cover today is the topic of productivity. Now, definitionally, productivity is defined as the relationship between inputs and outputs. Something is productive if you don't have to put as much into it, such as your money, your time, your resources, and you get more out of it. Additionally, we can also think about you being able to do something quicker. Now, let's think about an example. All right. For instance, if Sam studies for 1 hour and gets a B, and Bob studies for 7 hours and gets the same B, Sam is more productive. He's able to get the same thing in less time. Now, companies can increase their productivity of their workers by investing in new technologies, machinery, or training. Some of those different things that they can help is those sources of human capital. We talked about human capital when we talked about those 4 factors of production. Some of those sources of human capital include the education of their workers, giving them new skills, the health of their workers. I mean, you can't be very productive if you're home sick, on-the-job training, and also migration and information can all be sources of human capital. Now, the second thing that can help out productivity is a standard of living. Now, the standard of living is typically defined as the material well-being of people that in a certain economy that they enjoy. Now, we can measure the standard of living in any particular area by measuring what is called real GDP and real GDP per capita. What this tells us is how much a person typically makes compared to other years and taking out inflation. Now, to increase your own standard of living, you should invest in your human capital. Now, once again, human capital are the skills that you possess, and they're usually acquired through training or education. Typically, then, the more education you have, the more you are likely to make, and therefore the higher standard of living you are likely to enjoy. Now, of course, we see the little ellipses around education, and that education doesn't necessarily need to be within a traditional sense, either a 2 or 4-year school or even graduate school or medical school. It could be if you're in a technical school and you acquire new certifications, or you apprentice with somebody and achieve new certifications. Really, that education can be in any sense. But as long as you're continuing to grow and to acquire and perfect new skills, you're going to continue to see your ability to earn money go up, and therefore your standard of living is going to increase over time. Now, we can see all of this through something that is called the production possibilities curve. And the production possibilities curve is our very first graph. And I know you must be wondering, what is the production possibilities curve? Well, the production possibilities curve, or frontier, is a model that shows alternative ways that economy can use its scarce resources. Now, this model has helped to graphically demonstrate the ideas of scarcity, trade-offs, opportunity costs, and efficiency. And it's based upon 4 key assumptions. Those 4 key assumptions are, number 1, that only 2 goods can be produced within any economy or for any one person. The second key assumption is that you are fully employing your resources. So for instance, if the graph is about a country, that country is using everything that it has. If it's about you, we're going to assume that you're using all of your time and all of your resources in the production of those goods. The third is that we have fixed resources. In other words, the graph is a snapshot in time. And although things can change in the future, it's just showing us what a person or a group of people or a country could do at that particular moment. In addition to this, we also assume fixed technology. Like, you can't change things necessarily at the snap of your fingers. though it can change, but that would be in the future, and that would change the graph in its entirety. So let's walk through an example to show you what this would all be. So we're going to look at the following production possibilities table. So let's say that you decided to go into business for yourself, and you wanted to make one of two things, either bikes or computers. The following table shows the various different amounts of bikes and computers that you could possibly make using all of your available resources. For instance, you could make, if you spent your entire day making bikes, you could make 14 bikes, but you would have no time to make any computers. Conversely, if you spent your entire day building computers, you could build 8, but you could build no bikes. And the points B, C, and D represent a combination where you spend some of your time making bikes and some of your time making computers. Now, what you should do in your notes is you would need to go ahead and let's graph this. So let's put your bikes on the y-axis and your computers on the x-axis. Mark each of the points A, B, C, D, and E, and then connect the dots between them. Go ahead and pause the video while you do that now. All right, well, let's see how you did. Here's what it should look like. We've got our bikes on the vertical axis, our computers on the horizontal axis, and we've got our points A, B, C, D, and E, all connected. And this shows us our production possibilities frontier, or our production possibilities curve. You can see how it's curved. Now, we talked a few minutes ago that the production possibilities curve or frontier shows things such as scarcity, trade-offs, opportunity costs, and efficiencies. And so we want to think about how does it do so? Well, first of all, how does it demonstrate scarcity? Simply put, any point outside of that curve becomes impossible. You're not able to be able to do anything outside of that given curve. For instance, point G is impossible or unobtainable, and so it's not able to happen. Therefore, it's scarce. You have limited resources. It also represents trade-off. For instance, if you decide to produce at point B, you won't be able to produce 14 bikes. There's a trade-off there. It also shows us opportunity cost. Whenever you move from one point to another, you're giving up something. So for instance, if you move from point A to point B, you're going to give up 2 bikes. Your opportunity cost then is 2 bikes that you're giving up. And any point along that curve, either A, B, C, D, or E, or any point in between, represents efficiency. We're using all of our possible resources to its full potential. Now, one of the biggest things that you need to be able to do with the production possibilities curve is to be able to demonstrate and articulate the idea of opportunity cost. So let's go ahead and let's practice. We're using the same numbers that we had on the last graph, though our graph looks a little bit better here. And so let's go through these 5 examples right here. So the first one, and we'll do together, it says the opportunity cost of moving from A to B is. So what we're going to look at here is we'll see from A, we can produce 14 bikes and 0 computers. And if we move to B, we're going to gain 2 computers, but we're going to lose 2 bikes as we go from 14 to 12. So we're going to lose 2 bikes. Remember, opportunity cost is what you give up. Therefore, the opportunity cost of moving from A to B is 2 bikes. Now, there's 2 things that are important. Number 1, I've identified the number, the numerical amount that I'm giving up, but I'm also identifying which item I'm giving up, 2 bikes. Go ahead and pause the video and do 2, 3, 4, and 5 on your own. We'll come back in just a second with the correct answers. All right, so looking at number 2, it says the opportunity cost of moving from B to D. Well, if we go from B to D, we're going to go from 12 bikes, and now we're coming down to that's 5. So we're going to be giving up 7 bikes. The opportunity cost of moving from D to B. Well, now we're going to be gaining bicycles, but we're going to be losing computers. So we go from having 6 computers to now only 2 computers. Therefore, we're going to give up 4 computers. The opportunity cost of moving from F to C. Well, in this particular case, we were not at an efficient point. We were making 4 computers, we're still making 4 computers, and we've gained from here, we've gone from 6 to 9. We've gained 3 bicycles. So we don't have an opportunity cost. So we haven't given up anything. So we have an opportunity cost of 0 computers. Now, what can we say about point G? Well, point G is outside the curve. Therefore, point G is going to be unobtainable or impossible. Now, a few minutes ago, we talked about how we had made 4 key assumptions. The first 2 assumptions had to deal with the fact that we were going to utilize all of our resources and that we were only going to make 2 things. The second 2 dealt with fixed resources and fixed technologies. But what if those things changed? Well, we would have to completely change how we drew the graph. And that leads us into the shifting or the changing of that production possibilities curve or frontier. There are 3 main shifters for the production possibilities curve. We're mostly going to be talking about the first 2. The first one is a change in resource quantity or quality. The second one is a change in technology. The third one, which we're going to talk more about in a future unit, is a change in trade, such as international trade with a foreign country. Well, let's go ahead and work through a few examples to show how these 3 shifters are going to impact our production possibilities curve. The first one that we're going to look at is, let's say we've got computers and pizza. Now, 2 different things we can make. Well, what happens if there's an increase in population? Well, what this would be is this would be a change in the resource quantity. There's more people to make these things. If there's more people that can make computers and more people that can make pizzas, there's going to be an increase in the production possibilities curve for both computers and pizza. It will shift the entire curve outward. You can make more. More people would be able to make more. Simple enough. Well, what about if we had a technological improvement in pizza ovens? Well, this is a shifter in technology, but it wouldn't impact computers. It's not like if you had new pizza ovens, you could somehow make more computers. So what happens here is that this point right here doesn't change. This point does. Therefore, it's going to shift out like this. And we're going to see an improvement in the pizza oven technology. Now, in both of these cases, what we can look at is we can look at the difference between what we call capital goods and future growth. So the first thing I want to mention here is capital goods and consumer goods. So we're going to take 2 countries. Now, capital goods are the things, the tools and machines that we talked about way back in lesson number 1. And those are the machines that you use to make anything else. Consumer goods are simply anything that you buy. It doesn't have to be a food product. It could be the computer that I'm making this video on. It could be the phone that you're holding in your hand watching this video. Anything is a consumer good that you buy. A capital good is just the machine that makes that consumer good. Well, let's take the country of Mexico and Panama. So this is the current production possibilities curve of Panama. If they favor consumer goods, which means they're going to make more things and they're not going to make as many tools, in the future, they're going to be able to produce out here. Mexico, on the other hand, let's say this is their current PPC, and if they decide to spend more of their time working on their technology, working on their machinery, their tools, things like that, in the future, they're going to be able to produce a lot more in the future. So, countries that produce more capital goods today will have more growth in the future. Let's think about that in another way. So let's take the following company. Now, this following company, the pizza owner, let's call him Tony. All right, Tony has one day, all right? And so every day he has the choice and he can make either 1 pizza oven or he can make 10 pizzas. That's what he can do. He only has time to do one of those 2 things. And let's just simplify and say that he can't do anything in the middle. He can either pick this point or this point down over here. Well, which one of these things would lead to more growth in the future? If all he does is make pizzas today, he's still only going to be able to make 10 pizzas tomorrow and still tomorrow only be able to make one oven. But if he chooses this point and emphasizes the capital goods today, making the pizza oven, tomorrow he'll be able to make 20 pizzas because he'll have 2 ovens. All right, so this leads to that greater economic growth. So now that we've had a few minutes to talk about the shifting of the production possibilities curve, let's go ahead and do a couple practice questions on your own. What I'd like to go ahead and do is you're going to draw a production possibilities graph and the change for each of the following situations. Number 1, for pizzas and computers, both consumer goods. First of all, show what would happen with new computer making technology, a decrease in the demand for pizzas, a situation where mad cow disease killed 85% of cows. Now, for each one of those 3 things, you're going to draw 3 separate graphs. One for number 1, a different one for number 2, and a different one for number 3. Then, for consumer goods and capital goods, the destruction of power plants leads to severe electricity shortages, faster computer hardware, many workers unemployed, and significant increases to education. Go ahead, pause the video, draw those out, and then we'll go through the answers in just a second. All right, we're back. Let's see how you guys did. Our first one, question 1, new computer making technology. Well, what would happen here? New computer making technology was going to really shift only computers. Not going to help pizzas out at all. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see a shift outwards. Now, notice, see the arrow right here demonstrating that it's going to move out? That's what you should have on your graph. Our next one, a decrease in the demand for pizzas. Well, this one is kind of a trick question. It doesn't change how many pizzas we could possibly make. It doesn't shift how many computers we can possibly make. All it's going to do is change the number. So for instance, we may go from wanting this many pizzas to maybe only wanting this many pizzas. It doesn't change how many, it just shifts along the curve this way. From that point to that point, for instance. What about for number 3? Mad cow disease kills 85% of cows. Well, let's assume they're dairy cows here, so you're going to have less cheese. And so this is going to shift inward, but only for pizzas, since you don't really need cheese for computers. Notice once again, this arrow pointing inwards right over here indicates that that curve is shifting inwards. Well, let's do consumer and capital goods. What if you had destruction of power plants? Well, you're not going to be able to make as much of anything. And so we're going to see a decrease in resources. And so we see a decrease in the production possibilities for both. Notice the arrow shifting inward and the new line right over here. Number 5, faster computer hardware. Well, the quality of resources is going to improve, and this shifts the entire curve outward, like so. Number 6, unemployment of workers. Well, once again, it's not that you have less workers, they're just not working. Therefore, you're not being efficient. So the curve isn't going to shift. It's just unemployment, and it's a point inside the curve, like so. Finally, number 7, a significant increase in education. Well, if you're increasing your education, you're increasing your human capital. And what this means is that the quality of your labor is improved, and the curve is going to shift outward, like so. Well, let's do a few more practice questions to make sure that we understand the concept. What is the term for the amount of output in relation to a given amount of resources used in production? For this one, you should have chosen A, productivity. Our second practice question. Economic growth is most closely associated with an increased investment in which of the following? For this one, you should have chosen D, equipment and technology. Our third practice question. What is the relationship between investing in human capital, such as education and job training, and a nation's standard of living? For this one, you should have selected C. A nation's standard of living increases when it increases in human capital. And our last question, which of the following would result in a change in the production possibilities frontier in the mythical country of Alpha? For this one, you should have selected D, all of the above. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Until next time, have a great day.